On Green Island, everything began when Willem walked discreetly through the crowd of demi-humans. His steps were cautious because he did not want to attract attention. However, his eyes became fixed on a curious scene. A girl was rushing after a cat, trying to retrieve something the animal had taken. Before she could reach her goal, the young woman tripped, and at that moment Willem threw himself toward her, determined to prevent her from getting hurt. The sound of the collision, however, drew the attention of everyone around them. People approached, and when they realized that the one responsible was a human, they immediately became irritated and distrustful. Thali, faced with those disapproving stares, felt uncomfortable and thought of leaving the place as quickly as possible. However, Willem stopped her and handed her the object the cat had stolen. To everyone's surprise, he removed the hood that kept him hidden and placed it on her head, shielding her from the criticism. Without waiting for her reaction, he took her by the arm and led her away from that hostile crowd. Minutes later, Willem bought a hat so she could remain concealed, remembering that on that island, demi-humans were not welcome. To him, the best option was for Stoli to leave, so he offered to take her to the port. She, however, explained that she did not intend to leave the place, but continue to another destination. Willem reflected and decided to help her. They then began walking together through the city. During that time, he showed her the most interesting places on the island, which resulted in moments of amusement and even a few small problems. At a certain point, Thali admired the view that unfolded from the top of the central tower. Enchanted by the landscape, she thought to herself that she had already traveled to many islands, but had never felt such joy as she did now. The feeling of happiness filled her entirely. Thali sincerely thanked Willem for that experience. However, upon noticing the approach of guards, she understood that it was time to step away. She asked him for one last favor, that he forget their meeting, for he should not see it as something lasting. Upon leaving, she left Willem confused, but he knew that he could not involve himself beyond what was necessary in situations that did not belong to him. A few hours later, Willem met his friend Greek in a bar. The companion, with a serious expression, asked him when he was going to look for a job, saying that it was not right to continue living that way, hiding as if he were dead. Greek also mentioned having heard of a place that needed someone, where there would be no discrimination for not being a demi-human, and where the payment would be generous. Willem, however, refused, stating that he had no interest in working. This left Greek displeased, and he insisted that Willem could not continue living that way. After so much pressure, Willem eventually gave in, but made clear that he would not do anything involving executions or strange tasks. Greek promised it would be a simple job and assured that he would recommend him. A few hours later, Willem arrived at the floating island where the warehouse was located. The place made him uneasy, for he heard wolves howling and knew that, as a markless one, his life there would not be easy. The bridge leading to the place was in terrible condition, and to make matters worse, a girl suddenly appeared and attacked him. He managed to dodge the strikes, and when he realized she would fall into the swamp, he intervened to keep her from being injured. Even so, he ended up taking a hit from her. Surprised, he listened as Tittle asked him why he was acting that way. Recognizing her in that place left him perplexed, and he commented in his thoughts that he had many questions. But first he needed to clean himself, since he was covered in mud. After the bath, upon opening the door, Willem could hardly believe what he saw. Standing before him was Astartes, a troll he had known since childhood. He had never imagined she lived there. Astartes, in turn, became thrilled to realize that Willem would be the one accompanying her, and he thought that this could only be another one of Greek's plans. The troll guided him through the place, explaining that the island was controlled by the army and the merchants' guild. She invited him to eat something else, but Willem hesitated, remembering how Astartes always carried the instinct of devouring humans. Even so, she stated that she would not do that, because she knew he was one of the last of his kind. She asked if he intended to stay there, commenting that none of the previous guardians had lasted long in that environment. Willem replied that he was not at all pleased to know she was there, but he could not refuse a job he had already accepted. The answer left Astartes excited, because after so long, she would have the chance to look after him again. Willem, still suspicious, asked whether that house was truly the weapons depot he was supposed to guard. He expected to find ammunition or something similar, but he saw nothing of the sort. Astartes only said that they could talk about it later. As soon as she opened one of the doors, 4 girls fell to the floor, surprised for being caught spying. Astartes ordered them to return to their rooms, and the young ones, frightened, ran away quickly. Right after that, she led Willem to her quarters. Little time passed until noises were heard outside. When he opened the door, Willem once again found the curious girls. Willem asked them to remain silent so Astartes would not notice and asked for their names. In response, they introduced themselves and began asking countless questions. Willem, patiently, told them how he knew Astartes, and explained that from that moment on, he would begin working in that place. When Thali appeared, she scolded the girls, saying she had already warned them not to disturb anyone. Caught, the young ones ran back to their rooms. Thali then apologized to Willem for the inconvenience, but he replied that he was used to children, and thanked her for the hot water she brought him to prevent a cold. The girl, embarrassed, finally introduced herself since she had not done that in the city. Willem noticed that she wanted to ask something, but as he began to turn to leave, he decided to stop her, since he also had doubts. He mentioned that he had been hired as a guard for a weapons depot, but that place looked nothing like one, and he also did not understand the reason for the presence of so many girls in a military facility. Surprise overtook Thali, who admitted having accepted the job without further explanation. She then said that the weapons he was supposed to guard were, in fact, all those girls living there. She hoped he would understand and care for them as best as possible, but advised him to rest first. Willem, confused, could not comprehend how those young ones could be considered weapons. A distant memory came to him. 5 centuries earlier, he enjoyed a meal at the orphanage where he lived. He knew that the next day he would face the decisive war. That night, one of the girls asked him to have a reason strong enough to return. Willem was surprised, but promised that he would come back so they could eat together again. She smiled happily and said she would wait for him. However, 1 year after that promise, humanity had been destroyed, and he could not fulfill his word. In the present, seeing the dining hall full of cheerful children savoring their food, Willem was stunned. The revelation that all of them were considered weapons seemed impossible to believe. Astartes was the first to speak, introducing the hero to the group, and he greeted them naturally. However, he was surprised to see that the girl before him reacted with fear, as if the mere presence of a man was something threatening. In the following days, the hero tried to approach the girls. He tried to talk to them and even help them with small tasks, but the reaction was always the same: apprehensive looks and gestures of fear. He thought in silence that he did not understand how he could awaken so much fear merely by existing among them. He then decided to speak directly with Astartes and Thali. Both explained that those girls had never seen an adult man, and therefore, their reaction was completely normal. Before he could reflect further, 2 more girls approached, commenting that only Thali seemed less nervous in his presence. This left Thali visibly irritated by their remarks, while the hero tried to ease the situation, saying that he was used to dealing with small children. Even so, an idea came to his mind, and a few hours later, he finished preparing a caramel that Nep and Thali tasted without hesitation, delighted by the flavor. Excited by their reaction, the hero decided to prepare several desserts in a short period, filling the table with assorted sweets. The girls were fascinated, tasted each one with enormous joy, and enjoyed everything until nothing remained. He simply smiled, watching the happiness on their faces, though inside he was overtaken by memories of another time. Astartes called him, interrupting his thoughts, and the hero replied that he had let himself be carried away by the memories, promising himself he would not make mistakes again. It was then that a group of excited girls knocked him to the ground, asking him to make more of those desserts for them. That night, he thanked Thali for her help with everything, but noticed that the girl seemed to want to tell him something important. However, she withdrew again and simply walked away in silence. The next day, the hero watched the girls playing cheerfully, laughing among themselves. From her room, Thali also watched them, and her friends did not miss the chance to tease her, insinuating that she was jealous because of the hero's good relationship with the others. Neb commented that perhaps it was because of the hat she cared for so affectionately, and Thali, embarrassed, denied it quickly, and he reminded her that only 10 days remained until something important, emphasizing that few fairies reached that age, and this left Thali thoughtful. Meanwhile, the hero kept watching the girls play, until he saw one of them slip down a slope. He ran in distress and asked if she was all right. The girl, even with her knee bleeding, stood up smiling and said she had only tripped. He firmly asked her not to move, shocked that the others simply encouraged her bravery without worrying about the injury. Hours later, already in the infirmary, the hero confided to Astartes that he found it strange how they did not value their own lives. He wanted to understand who those girls really were. Astartes, however, hesitated to answer. She said she preferred to keep it secret, since until then he had treated them with care and naturally, and she feared that once he learned the truth, his attitude would change completely. The hero insisted, stating that he needed the truth. Shortly after, they descended a staircase, and Astartes began to narrate that 500 years earlier, the 17 beasts had exterminated all life on Earth, including humans. Many people still feared such creatures. Upon opening the door of a special room, the hero immediately recognized the ancient carrion weapons used by human heroes. Astartes explained that they were now called excavated weapons, and were the only ones capable of defeating the beast. Since there were no more humans, it was those girls, known as fairies, who inherited the role. For since ancient times they had imitated humans, they could wield the weapons, and because they did not fear death, they became perfect partners in battle. The hero was deeply shaken as he understood that those girls were precisely the companions destined for such weapon. The next day, he left disturbed by the revelation. He did not find Thali or Ithia, and upon asking Nep, learned that they had left for a few days. This immediately made him suspicious. Days later, on the way to meet the girls, he thought about the danger of the weapons that absorbed the user's life potential. Fairies who did not value their own existence granted immense power to the weapons, but such power could create an explosion capable of destroying everything around. Even so, he felt relieved when he saw both return safe and sound. He greeted Aya, who was surprised to see him but assured him she was fine, although Thali was very tired. The hero received their swords and accompanied them back home. When speaking with Ithia, she was surprised that he knew the weapons' names, but he explained that he was already familiar with them and knew their nature. Ithia simply asked him not to change the way he treated them, for they were only defending the world, even if seen as disposable. The hero replied that once, he had met someone in a similar situation, and that because of a promise made in the past, he could not leave them alone. Some time later, Thali awoke confused and frightened upon realizing he was at her side. He asked her to rest, reminding her that she still had a fever, and that, as guardian, he would take care of her. Gathering courage, Thali asked if he would grant her a wish, since she believed she would die in 5 days. The hero was surprised and wanted to know why she thought so. She explained that one of the beasts would attack a floating island, a rare event, but that over time it had learned to use parts of the air to push itself. It was a deadly threat and could only be defeated if she gave her life to the sword. Therefore, she asked that her last wish be a kiss. The hero scolded her, saying she should not cling to the idea of death and needed to value her life. Thali replied that she only wanted to be remembered fondly. He kissed her on the forehead and explained that perhaps the poison accumulated from using the sword was weakening her body. Then he massaged her until she fell asleep peacefully. Holding the sword, he remembered his former companion in war, who had promised him she would protect everyone as the strongest heroine. He swore he would not let the same tragedy happen again. That night, he went to the document storage and was impressed by the enormous number of records. Neb appeared, offering him something to drink, and asked what he was planning. He replied that he was only searching for information and taking the chance to organize the place. Neb then said she would help him, and the hero thanked her. Together, they began arranging the archive. The next morning, Thali awoke remembering what had happened and became deeply embarrassed. Some girls entered the room asking how she felt, for they knew that every time she returned from a battle, she became exhausted. This was something she still remembered. But curiously, this time she felt no pain at all. Then she asked the girls if they knew where the hero was. They answered that he was in the warehouse with Neb. The response left Thali intrigued, so she decided to check personally what was happening. Our hero noticed her presence and greeted her immediately. Thali, surprised, asked in a firm tone what exactly they were doing there. He explained that he was searching for a more efficient way to use those weapons, so they would not be at risk of dying so easily. Thali, however, refused to consider such an idea, stating that it was their fate to fight, and that they did not need pity. The hero then asked her to leave for a few moments, but it did not take long before both had their swords in hand. Thali did not fully understand what he intended until he challenged her to a fight, declaring that perhaps they were not the only ones capable of handling the excavated weapons. He was even more daring, claiming that he could fight better than she could. Furious, Thali released the power of her sword and charged at him. However, without understanding how it happened, she was thrown to the ground. Determined, she stood up again to attack him, but the hero hurled her far away. Astonished, she could not understand what was happening. He then explained that those swords absorbed the enemy's strength and redirected it the moment they touched the blade. There was, therefore, a better way to fight than simply using them as destructive weapons. Thali did not want to accept that all the effort of centuries had been in vain. Angry, she attacked again. The hero replied, saying that she did not know how to wield the sword correctly, because she acted only with fury and without thinking. In this way, you become useless, he stated. Using only the sword's power and precise movements, he knocked her down again. Even so, he praised her courage and the strength running through her veins, adding that with proper training, she could become a remarkable warrior. Exhausted, Thali collapsed weakened on the ground, which even worried Neb, for the hero was beginning to bleed. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Astartes spoke with the army general, confirming the orders. In 3 days, 3 warriors would be sent to the island, and one of them would use the fairy portal to eliminate the creature. The general fully confirmed the plan, and soon the conversation ended. Astartes, however, could not hold back tears of frustration, for it did not seem fair that one of the girls had to die. without having enjoyed so many good things in life. At that moment, some girls rushed in, saying it was an emergency. The hero was on the brink of death. He himself remembered the battle against the god Eben when he had been gravely wounded. Eben had recognized his strength and sworn to return to the world in 1,000 years. He also said that when he returned, he would probably not find him, because he would already be dead. Seconds later, the god's body exploded before him, and the hero, feeling his strength fade, apologized to everyone for breaking the promise of returning alive. It was at that moment that he awoke. Astartes, seeing him conscious, assumed he had dreamed something very intense. Even so, she asked what had happened, since his organs were in critical condition, and his muscles extremely weak. The hero looked at the scars on his body and said that they belonged to the past. There was no reason to worry. Astartes noticed some curious girls peeking, so she asked her friend to rest. Later, Astartes told a young girl how they had found the hero. She explained that, together with an exploration group on the surface, they discovered a frozen lake, and, in its center, the petrified body of the human. After many analyses, they understood that he was under a petrification curse. It was difficult to awaken him, for he was confused and gravely injured. But they managed to establish contact and understood that he was the last living human, since his race had been extinct for 500 years, along with life on the surface. For this reason, he asked the girls not to fear him. Even more curious, they ran to him, asking many questions about how he had survived, and why he resembled the fairies so much. Astartes had to intervene, asking the girl to leave and apologizing to the hero. At that moment, Thea entered accompanied by two friends. One of them asked why someone like him would care so much about girls, whose fate was already sealed. The hero replied calmly that he did so because he did not want to see young ones like them die. Thali, in turn, did not accept those words and left the place. She released her wings and flew through the clouds while tears streamed down her face. She thought about how long it had taken her to accept her own fate, as her sisters had before her. However, she lost control and ended up landing on an army ship. Soon after, she thanked the general for helping her and said that recently Vylin had taught her a new fighting technique. The general was intrigued, because that meant that much of what they had done until then might have been wrong. Thali then confessed that she was afraid of dying. The general was not surprised. He said that it was natural for warriors to fear death, but they should understand the determination engraved in their souls. Something that they called the wind, released only in the final moment. Thali did not understand those words very well, but admitted she had never dreamed of being a warrior. The general just laughed at her confession. Some time later, Thali returned to the island. The hero was there, maintaining the sword. She approached and asked why he was doing that. She was impressed when she saw a dome forming over them and some lights moving toward the fragments. He explained that those weapons were talismans, containing wishes and minor spells, which, when combined, produced powerful effects. That was what granted them such strength. Thali was surprised and said she had spoken with the general, who had given her the freedom to decide what to do up until the day of the battle. Depending on what happened, the fate listed could be changed. She then asked if she could really become stronger. The hero confirmed, promising that yes, even if she didn't choose to. He also promised that if she returned alive from the mission and defeated the monster, she could ask for anything she wished. The promise left Thali speechless. After much thought, she asked for something simple, a butter cake. She said that one of her older sisters always ate that sweet after missions, but none of them knew how to make the recipe. The hero couldn't help but remember Elmira, who also loved that cake, and promised to make it for Thali when she returned. A few days later, the girls were departing toward the island. The hero spoke with Greg, admitting that he could not stand farewells. He took the opportunity to buy the ingredients needed to make the cake for when they come back. 2 weeks passed. He was with Astartes, uneasy due to lack of news. The weight was eating him up. Astartes suggested he help her with some tasks so he could distract himself. The hero accepted. While repairing a leak on the roof, he realized that there was no one nearby to help him. He began looking for the girl, but not finding her anywhere. He felt his heart race, gripped by fear. Astartes appeared before him, speaking seriously, saying he should no longer search for the girls because they had been sent to war and had not survived. At that moment, the hero opened his eyes suddenly, breathing a sigh of relief when he realized it was only a dream. He then pointed to his aunt, showing the direction they were going to during the walk across the island. However, he couldn't avoid a certain irritation with Astartes, because the journey had taken almost an entire day. Still, his aunt's words came back to his mind. She had told him that Tiad had had a dream in which she walked through a strange island, speaking with someone she had never seen. Among the fairies, this type of vision was called a precursor dream, and whoever showed such signs was supposed to be sent to the General Hospital of Korna. As they walked through the city, the hero told his aunt they still had some time, and so he wanted to visit a place of his interest. She, without rushing to reach the hospital, accepted the idea, allowing them to stroll through different streets without a fixed destination. In the next minutes, Tiad recognized famous spots that appeared in scenes from old films she knew. She spoke enthusiastically about each place and explained their stories, but the hero did not show much interest, since those films depicted only demi-humans, something that did not attract him much. Despite that, he caught his aunt's attention when he bought a small object at one of the shops. The girl became even more excited and pointed to the statue of the great sage, the city's founder known by an ancient legend. Couples who swore love before it would live happily for many years. The hero observed the statue's face with curiosity, feeling intrigued. Suddenly, screams echoed through the streets as some demi-humans began destroying a nearby building. In the chaos, the guardian golems were summoned and chased those responsible. The hero quickly shielded Tiad, who was in his path, but ended up stumbling over one of the men. The man fell, being captured, while he told Tiad to go straight to the hospital. She agreed, already satisfied with everything she had seen so far. When they arrived, the doctor received them calmly and led Tiad to the infirmary, while the hero encouraged her, promising that the next day they would continue exploring the city. Soon after, the doctor turned to the hero. He said he had studied the fairies for many years, but had never met anyone who accompanied them so naturally. The hero commented that Astardisji was busy and asked what exactly was expected from the fairies. The answer surprised the doctor, who explained, not all of them awakened the gift to wield swords. The precursor dreams were signs that perhaps they were not suitable, and because of that, the examinations served to assess whether the body could begin the adjustment process, a stage in which certain changes matured to allow the use of weapons. The doctor asked the hero to follow him, assuring that Taddy's exam would not take very long. He also emphasized that most girls did not show serious problem, but in rare cases, strange illnesses appeared that altered their behavior. In the infirmary, he said that Tiad's exam had gone well, and that she would need to remain until noon for the adjustment. The hero said goodbye to her, asking her not to be afraid, assuring her that he would return to pick her up. While he was leaving, he reflected in silence. Tiad had always dreamed of growing up, but she had never imagined that when she achieved that wish she would become a warrior. Later, when he arrived at the inn, he noticed they had given him a luxurious room. In recognition of his rank in the army, he asked the people there if they knew anything about the battle on Island 15, but no one had information. He decided to rest, although sleep did not come easily. The next morning, he got up tired and, when he looked through the window, he was disappointed by the rain that would ruin his plans to go out with Tiad. He decided to take a walk anyway and ended up bumping into a girl who, impressed by his appearance, asked him if he knew any way to communicate with General Linskensing. The hero remembered the enormous lizard and answered that it was not possible, since the general was on a mission and had raised a shield that blocked communication. While he spoke, he heard some officers commenting about the battle on Island 15. Without hesitation, he jumped into the garden, interrupting a soldier and demanding that he tell him everything he knew, reminding him that, as the responsible officer, he should be aware of the situation. The soldier, uneasy, revealed that the report confirmed the failure of the island's defense. The news hit him hard. He immediately thought of Ch Thali and his two friends, refusing to accept the idea of losing them. In that whirlwind of memories, he saw someone entering the barracks. He recognized General Linskensing and ran toward him. At that moment, a familiar voice made him turn. It was Ikea, accompanied by Nep and Ch Thali. Unable to believe what he was seeing, the hero threw himself at them, embracing them tightly. The girls were surprised, and Ch Thali asked him to let her go, because he was squeezing her too much. Limesky commented that he had not managed to sense his approach, and suspected an ancient art was being used. Ikea, in turn, said she had not expected to see him so emotional, while she and Nep tried to help Ch Thali, who asked for a little more space. Soon afterward, all of them assured him that they were fine. The hero took a deep breath, relieved but still confused, until Ch Thali, embarrassed and surprised by the intensity of the hug, gave him a slap. A few hours earlier, the girls had fought against wild creatures on Island 15. Ch Thali, with everything she had learned, advanced with determination, impressing her companions by being the most dedicated. After defeating an enormous beast, they thought about retreating, but a new monster emerged from inside the fallen creature, something completely unknown. It unleashed a devastating ray, killing the nearby soldiers, which led Limesky to order an immediate retreat. Ch Thali, however, refused to flee without eliminating all the enemies, unwilling to accept defeat. When she approached the creature, strange images and a mysterious voice appeared in her mind, confusing her. After hours of confrontation, they decided to retreat, later reporting to the hero what had happened. The general praised his work, reminding him that the swords had shone on the battlefield thanks to the maintenance he had done. Thali, however, still blamed herself for not having given her life to protect the island, but Nepia reassured her, saying that even if she had released all the power of the weapon, it would not have been enough to defeat that monster. For now, they would need to focus on becoming stronger and evolving much more. It was at that moment that Pierre entered, calling for Uncle Limesky and asking for his help. The young girl explained anxiously that her father had received death threats if he did not close the academy. That took everyone by surprise, but the girl begged for help, explaining that her father had received a death threat if he did not cancel the ceremony, and she was extremely distressed. After all, her father was the mayor and had too many responsibilities for someone to simply intervene. Limesky, in turn, said that he could not help him personally, and asked our hero if he could. He, however, refused. He already had girls to take care of, and besides that, he needed to get up and go pick up Tiet. As they left, Pierre began to follow him, explaining that she needed his help, because her father was planning a ceremony to announce new policies that would accept all races in the city. However, there was a group that opposed the acceptance of people without marks, responsible for the recent attacks, including kidnapping children, and now they were being much more direct. The hero only apologized, knowing that he could not interfere, since the army only acts on external problems. Because of this, he could not become involved in the city's internal issue, and for the same reason, Limesky also refused. That left Pierre disappointed, to the point of begging anyone for help. Minutes later, they arrived at the hospital, where the other girls welcomed Tiet with warm hugs. He explained that he had not cried because of the examinations. Ida then questioned the hero, asking if he was not being too harsh with Pierre, since she seemed to have no one to rely on. He answered that he could not accept responsibilities he would not be able to resolve, suggesting that they go eat something, taking advantage of a nearby food stand. But Pierre refused to settle for that option, and demanded that he take them to the best food stand. Soon afterward, everyone was enjoying delicious lamb. While they praised the food, Pierre commented that the city was famous not only for its gastronomy, but also for its art, and that many films had been shot there. Tiet knew that and began to talk with Pierre, leaving the hero surprised. He noticed how Pierre valued every detail of the city, speaking with a sparkle in her eyes. Later, they arrived at an attraction where Pierre was talking with Thali, while the hero observed a group of performers dressed as clowns. Immediately, memories of images he had seen before fighting monsters, bringing a premonition of what could happen to those clowns. Thali became frightened, and he tried to calm her, but they continued exploring the place. The hero asked if there was any famous place, but emptier at that moment. Pierre confirmed and took them to the wishing well. While sharing stories, he noticed that they were surrounded by a group of werewolves. Pierre became terrified when the leader of the group introduced himself as the Knights of Annihilation. Opposed to the mayor's plans, they wanted to control the situation, preventing people without marks from remaining in the city. Everyone began to attack, but the hero raised his hand as if he were going to shoot. And to everyone's surprise, the enemies began to fall as if they had actually been shot, until he eliminated that entire group. He explained to the leader that he had already suspected the ambush, and apologized to Pierre, revealing that he had used her as bait, but that he had been protecting her. Guards arrived seconds later, arresting the members of the gang. Pierre, although grateful, did not approve of the hero's methods, apologizing to the girls. Then she said goodbye, wishing them the best. The hero continued walking with Stoll, reflecting on Pierre's behavior. Stoll interrupted, revealing that she knew exactly what he had done. By pretending to shoot, he had actually used coins, with a speed impossible to perceive, but she could notice it because she had trained at his side. She had also realized that he liked to fight, and begged him not to take risks anymore, promising to protect him. The hero confessed that, after waking up, he felt life had no meaning, because he only wanted to see everyone he had known again. But when he saw them again, he felt at home and happy. Stoll, blushing, left without saying anything, although she was equally happy and in love. He reached her seconds later, and when they approached the harbor, an officer named Bironi appeared, inviting him to a meeting. He refused until he heard the name, Sol Wang Kadel. When mentioning it, he stopped immediately, and asked the officer to take care of the girls until he reached the island, which Bironi confirmed. Kali, however, did not want to let him leave, and he promised to return. Stoll, with tears in her eyes, remembered the promise. The hero then remembered Maria and said goodbye, feeling a pain in his chest. Later, an old man appeared, furious because he believed that someone might refine the excavated weapons, imagining a scheme. But when he entered the room, the hero greeted him, calling him Song, ran to embrace him, calling him Black Swordsman, and asking how he was still alive. The hero laughed, commenting that he had changed a lot. He explained that an explosion had petrified him for 500 years, which Sawang understood, since his magic had not detected him. He also confessed that he had died, but used a curse That kept him alive. Even though he could no longer consider himself human, he was satisfied for not dying from illness or old age. Almost like an anime hero, he said that Lilia had died and recalled the past mission, where together with Lilia, they mocked Swank and laughed a lot. Salwang was left without a reaction. Recognizing that the hero was the ideal person to take care of the warehouse, the hero explained that he would bring the girl back. Although Salwang asked him to visit someone first, someone he certainly would not like, he then ordered a ship to be prepared for island number 2. On the other hand, Thali began once again to have those disturbing visions in which she perceived images and sounds that she could not understand, and she woke up deeply frightened, with her eyes changing appearance in an unsettling way. Meanwhile, our hero reached the island and, speaking with his one, indicated whom he wanted to introduce, but he did not understand what it was about, for he saw only a huge skull that spoke with excitement, complaining that it had been a long time since anyone had visited it. Our hero began questioning himself whether that was nothing more than a strange nightmare. A few minutes later, Seaball remarked that he seemed surprised, and he asked how that was possible, remembering that he had already fought him when he still possessed a body of flesh and bones. One explained that it was precisely because of that he no longer had the body. The previous attack had consumed the rest of his flesh. Although he had been shocked to awaken as a skeleton, he had no time to recover, for he was constantly using his power to protect the world. Our hero asked about the 17 beasts that were mentioned, and it was one who explained that they were biological experiments created by humans. They were part of a group known as the True Wars, whom they had faced before, but who had gone out of control. Thanks to the power the two had used, they managed to separate the islands from the surface so that they could remain alive. Now that our hero had returned, soon commented that he could return to the surface since he was the missing piece. The weapons that had been excavated were useless in that state, but if they were refined, they could generate the fairies needed to launch an attack on the surface and eliminate all the beasts. Our hero looked at them, questioning whether they were truly responsible for everything all the girls had gone through. Chithol, in turn, recalled the battle. A few seconds after, her mind began registering the visions. She tried to restrain herself, but the beast attacked her. Her internal power inflicted great damage on the monster, and although she knew that he had promised to return even stronger, she threw herself against him, and despite the confused images she had in her mind, she struck the creature with such force that she pierced it. With all the power she possessed, she split the island in two, but fainted immediately afterward, seeing for a few seconds her friends approaching. His W explained to the hero that the fairies were, in truth, the souls of children who wandered through the world as ghosts. With his magic, he managed to give bodies to them, turning them into fairies, but their lives were very short, and they felt no fear of death, making them perfect weapons. However, when the poison of the weapons accumulated, they began recalling past lives, suffering severe mental disorder, but it was the only way to fight the beasts. Meanwhile, Thali was with her friends eating, but noticed they had spoken little. She apologized and said she needed to rest a bit more. When entering the room, she heard the same voice again, and the images returned to her mind. She only begged to be left alone, feeling on the verge of madness, and she began to cry, imagining that she would not be able to taste the butter cake the hero had promised her. Right after, she saw herself in another body and lost consciousness. Our hero complained to his W, saying that he should not treat those weapons as if they had no value. The mage explained that it was the only way to use them, and that they needed to return to the surface. The hero remembered that there was nothing awaiting them, neither family nor a place better than that, which surprised only the W. Heaven asked them to leave him, for he knew the hero was determined to act, and first needed to take care of Thali, in case Sun had placed temporary lives above the world. At that moment, the door opened and Bironi informed that Thali was beginning to recover her memories and that her mind was disintegrating. Within moments, our hero was already back on the island, and Heaven questioned Sue if he had told the truth about the beasts. The old man admitted that long ago, he saw the hero as a brother and did not want Thali to hate him. Upon arriving on the island, hours later, the hero found Coley in the room. Nab remarked that he hoped he would keep his promise, and that made the hero feel guilt for not having managed to make her happy. Thali, in turn, awoke in a strange dimension, following a girl through several places until she introduced herself. The moment she tried to remember who she was, the girl could not, but the image of the hero and a promise made her react, saying that he needed to return. She hesitated, fearing the pain that would come from it, but assured that she was certain of her decision. The hero said goodbye, wishing to meet her again soon. He spoke with Astartasui, still not fully understanding what Thali had seen, but understanding that he needed to make her happy in any way. Thali began speaking to him, confessing that it would be impossible not to develop feelings for someone who had made her see the world in such a different way. He was the first person to defeat her, and the hero was shocked to see her alive again. Astartes pushed him with enthusiasm, and he embraced Thali, welcoming her back. She cried with emotion, relieved that he had returned, and together they released all their emotions. Idea whispered that it was a true miracle, unaware of the price Thali would pay for having returned. On the following day, after observing the hero training with the girls, Thali noticed a red strand in her hair, leaving her confused. On the ship, Ran was reading about humans and beasts. Nubai asked how she managed to understand human language, and she explained that she perceived some words and could connect their meaning, partially understanding the conversations. Grigo arrived to accompany them. Thali left the room and Teatra became excited, feeling something strange in her mind since the change. The hero entered happily upon seeing her come out, and the other girls became curious. Astartes instructed them to wash up before eating, and the hero asked Thali what they would do. He said they would check her health before meeting again in a few hours. Grigo noticed that the fairies still did not trust him and tried showing them food so they could take part in saving the army. Ran accepted that he would accompany them since there was no other choice. Meanwhile, they discussed the beasts, curious about their origin and why they destroyed humans. To other races they were dangerous, but for the fairies, those creatures were the very reason they existed. Meanwhile, in the infirmary, Astartes examined Thali. After running some blood tests, the girl asked if something strange was happening. Astartes hesitated, unsure how to explain, for she was not certain if it was dangerous, but something was definitely not normal. Meanwhile, our hero accompanied one of the girls to a nearby bakery to prepare some items. When the girl began to say that she saw him as a father and Thali as a mother, he decided to ask her to return to the others. That way, he could continue his work without distractions. Astartes, in turn, told Thali that the silver test on her blood had come out negative. That was extremely strange, since normally, when using fairy blood on silver, the substance would darken. Fairy blood always caused that reaction, but in her case, nothing happened, something they had never seen before. Thali said she felt nothing different, and thought it might be related to the red strand in her hair. Astartes replied that, for now, she would only keep observing her and recommended that she not use the excavated weapons, for she did not know how her body would react. In addition, she suggested that Thali try convincing our hero to stay, since his contract would soon expire, and she would not want to lose him. She even mentioned what could make her see that place more as a true home than simply a workplace. A few hours later, the hero's brother noticed that all the girls were excited, happily eating the cake he had prepared. However, he was surprised to notice that Thali was not among them. The girl explained that she did not like eating sweets in public. Minutes later, the hero brought her portion of cake to Thali. Her reaction was intense. She sat down to finally taste what she had been waiting for days, and even trying to contain the emotion. She ended up crying with joy. She had fulfilled her promise and had finally returned home. The hero embraced her, comforting her, reminding her that she did not need to worry, for she was safe there once again. Thali awoke more cheerful the next day, saying that she had many tasks to accomplish during the days of rest. The hero only asked her not to push herself too much, and to let him know if she felt strange. In the following days, Thali dedicated herself to taking care of the girls and organizing the house, focusing on domestic tasks, reflecting on the life she had left behind as a soldier of the army. The presence and support of our hero, for she had always dreamed of a peaceful future without fighting, at his side. Meanwhile, the hero encountered Lymansky, who was not wearing a uniform, and explained that he was being investigated for the defeat he had suffered, so he could not wear his usual attire. Niji commented that he had found Lymansky to discuss Thali's future, since everyone knew the girl was a weapon of the army and could not abandon that position. The hero then asked if So had great influence within the army, surprising Lymansky. He explained that So was the first military minister, to which the hero replied that he already had a solution. It would be enough to send a letter signed by him, explaining that he would take Thali as part of his own experiment, and that it would certainly be accepted. Niji was surprised, for he did not know that the hero knew the great sage, but the hero was first concerned about Neb, because the two of them would not be enough for other missions. Niji reminded him that he did not know the details of the surface exploration mission, and explained that at that moment there were 2 more fairies capable of fighting in an exploration mission. They had received attack reports without expecting anything positive. At that very moment, a beast attacked the research field on the surface. Grigg was surprised to see the monster strike the ship on which they had arrived, while Noob, with impressive agility, defeated the creature in seconds, lamenting not having faced a worthy opponent. Hours later, Niji informed the hero that he had been summoned to Island 49, likely to deal with a rescue mission. Stoll, in turn, was surprised to realize that she had forgotten which container held the pepper. Meanwhile, with Greg on the surface, reinforcements would be sent soon, according to warnings to headquarters, so they should simply wait, since the beasts normally did not share territory, and should not be present in large numbers. Ren, on the other hand, continued reflecting on what he had read in the human book. The hero appeared before Goodly, who explained that he would depart on a mission to rescue the girls. The usual ship was under repair, so he would need to wait. The mission consisted of recovering certain treasures from the surface, and the units sent would serve to protect the others, even if it required risking their lives. The remark displeased the hero, but he remained silent, respecting the presence of his superior. Goodly handed him a book with information about the ruins, and recommended that he study it to prepare for the mission. The hero was surprised. Upon seeing only part of the book, he recognized the map of the ruins, and the photographs showed him his hometown. One of the excavated weapons they sought awakened many memories. Before accepting the mission, he asked Goodly to do him a favor. Minutes later, the hero found Ch Thali in the square. She asked how things had gone, and he replied that they had received much information, but everything was resolved. He then asked what she planned to do. Ch Thali said she had received a shopping list and wanted to take the opportunity to walk with him, for they had never had time alone to explore the city. The hero reminded her that it was not entirely true, for when they had met, they had done something similar. This surprised Ch Thali, who did not remember, but she said it was not the same situation. They continued walking, and the hero noticed the confusion in the girl's eyes, realizing that Ch Thali was losing some memory. After several hours and many purchases, they sat down to talk. Some vendors even observed them as a couple. The hero said he had been assigned to a rescue mission on the surface, and chose NP to accompany him since he would not wait for the others to return. He also explained that they had discovered a known sword called Lapidon, which keeps its wielder in excellent physical condition. He became interested in the weapon, for it could help him deal with Ch Thali's mental deterioration. She, however, said he should not worry so much, and even offered to go with him on the mission. The hero refused, reminding her that she was no longer a fairy like the others, nor a soldier prepared to fight. Ch Thali, determined, insisted, and minutes later, both left headquarters, ready for the journey. Although our hero tried to explain that it happened, only because Goodly believed she was his partner, since many officers usually took her as an assistant on those trips. The following day brought new surprises. It awoke our hero for breakfast, and he was surprised to notice that he had fallen asleep right there, next to Nai, while investigating that weapon. Both girls then explained everything they had discovered, confirming that the sword really could help Ch Thali protect her mind from harm. This caused a slight astonishment in Ch Thali, who seemed very interested in it. After some time, our hero explained to Ch Thali why he had spent so long with the two girls in the library. He noticed a slight jealousy in her, something that made him a little uncomfortable, but he could not help but notice. A few hours later, he talked to Nai, who confessed that she did not understand why Ch Thali had changed or what the reason was for that different lock of hair. Our hero, in turn, said that he had noticed something strange in her, and explained what had happened. Nai only laughed, unaware of the feelings that Jolia's held for him. She wanted to be seen as a possible partner, not as a daughter. That left our hero a little surprised when Nai mentioned that she herself saw him as someone worthy of trust. Confused, he decided to act as if he had not heard that and left the place. Right afterward, he saw some girls running toward the exit, something that seemed strange to him because it was already late. Ch Thali then explained that it was a special night. When they went outside, they were surprised by shooting stars, a spectacle that enchanted even our hero. Ch Thali approached him, and he held her hand to convey confidence. At that moment, they heard the aunt scolding some girls, but Ch Thali assumed that he imitated her as if she were an older sister, and thanked him for allowing her to accompany him to the surface. Next, they heard one of the girls tripping, while looking for a better place to watch the stars. Our hero prepared to use one of his techniques to reach her, but surprisingly, Ch Thali released a power from within her and shot forward at full speed, managing to reach the girl first and protect her. He ran to them, asking if they were all right, but Ch Thali said it was nothing, and, for some reason, did not remember the girl's name. Our hero, furious, said that she was no longer the same, and explained that she should not use that power constantly, because she could lose it. Ch Thali, on the other hand, assured him that no one was hurt, and that she would now help the girl clean herself. She guaranteed everyone that it had been only an accident, and that there was no reason for concern. Minutes later, while helping the girl wash, Ch Thali looked at herself in the mirror, and was surprised to see a figure with red hair reflected. At the same time, memories of her conversation with our hero began to return, bringing forth strange images that disturbed her senses. Her hair seemed to become redder, and he, noticing this, grew frightened as he clearly remembered the elks. That night, Ch Thali went out for a while, trying to understand the return of those memories. Then Idea appeared, asking who she was. Surprised, CH Thali answered that she was holy. Ida confirmed this after a few seconds, realizing that she still remained the same. She asked CH Thali to forget those memories that did not belong to her, and said she should not focus on them. She also warned that she should not generate more poison, because that could affect her in a dangerous way. Although CH Thali explained to Ida that she had only saved the girl, without realizing it consciously. Ida reminded her that if she kept risking herself like that, she would end up losing her own life. Memories that were not hers and an existence that did not belong to her could eventually take over her mind. For that reason, it was important that she left all of that behind and focused only on the memories she possessed at that moment. She needed to think only about the people who truly mattered and live in the present. CH Thali felt a slight disappointment. Her mind continued to wear down, though slowly. Meanwhile, Ida decided to share with them the story of a girl she had met some time ago. That girl faced the same situation, but ended up letting herself be carried away by visions and memories. One day, she left her own body and awoke in a completely different body, without understanding how she had ended up there or who she was. She did not even recognize her own body. Fortunately, Ida managed to read her memories and understand the essence of that girl, her way of being. Even so, the girl felt guilty for having taken the place of someone cheerful and outgoing. The guilt made her consider many alternatives, but in the end, she decided to take Ida's place so no one would suspect. CH Thali was surprised. She had never imagined that. Ida then explained that this was why she needed to try hard. She had already managed to return once before being completely consumed, but perhaps next time she would not have the same luck. For this reason, CH Thali needed to always remember what she wanted and what her life was like. The girl felt encouraged and decided to live again with that determination. Ida, curious, asked if CH Thali did not want to know more about her or about the memories of her previous life. CH Thali answered that she already had her own fixed idea about what she would always remember and that this would not change. She did not need to worry because she would keep that a secret. The next day, CH Thali decided not to worry so much about the future and began to enjoy life more. All the girls were surprised to see her so cheerful and engaged in the house chores. CH Thali knew she needed to value her feelings and her own life without wasting it. She even began learning how to weave, knowing that winter was approaching and that some girls would need more warm clothes. At the same time, she tried to calm her friends, who found her different behavior strange. Later, our hero met with Astartes to ask about Koyan, who had caught a cold. Astartes said he would look for medicine later. Then, our hero showed CH Thali a piece of metal to place on Koyan's pillow, helping him rest better. For a moment, CH Thali did not recognize the girl's name and pretended to be surprised, saying that she did not know she possessed such a valuable artifact. Our hero explained that it was a fragment of his own sword, which irritated Astartes, who did not want excavated weapons treated as simple amulets. But our hero guaranteed that, at that moment, Koyan's recovery was the priority. He explained that the fragments had useful powers, and that he promised to return them to the sword before they departed, while they finished the preparations for the ship. CH Thali, to avoid facing our hero, began knitting, ignoring Astartes' romantic comments. That surprised everyone, showing that she was occupying her mind in another way. The next day, CH Thali approached our hero, offering him something to eat and asked if he could teach her how to sharpen swords and remove the accumulated poison, just as he had done before. He was surprised, but she explained that she wanted to spend more time with him and learn those skills which could be useful. Our hero asked her not to push herself too hard. Noticing that she still lost some memories, he assured her that when they returned with the sword, everything would improve. CH Thali was surprised because she thought she was hiding her feelings, and then asked about the map she had of the place where she had lived. Our hero confirmed, explaining that she had lived there 500 years ago, but that her true home was here now, and she would not trade that. CH Thali felt happy and decided to have some tea to hear more about her old life. In the following days, CH Thali remained focused on the house chores, without thinking much about her own situation. Her goal was to make others happy and enjoy each moment, aware that time was limited. When the snow festival arrived, she distributed the scarves she had knitted, calling each girl by name. Our hero asked Astartes what they celebrated, since there were gifts and a feast, and he explained that it used to be known as the Troll Festival, but now it was a moment of celebration and farewell for those who would soon depart on the mission. They even received gifts from P with a congratulatory letter. Our hero was surprised to see Cole wearing a dress she had received as a gift, and he could not resist approaching her to say she looked beautiful that night. The next day, while preparing to leave, CH Thali felt sad for having forgotten many things about the girls. Even along the way, some memories did not return, but she was determined to keep them as much as possible, because she knew that when they disappeared completely, she would not know if she would still be the same. A few hours later, they reached the surface, happy to see it again after such a long time. CH Thali had used the ferry door, and when she turned around, Neve saw her and ran away in fear. thinking she had seen a ghost. Later, our hero helped the girls release the excess poison in their bodies. Ranges trusted him as a human, and although she understood how he had gotten there, she still maintained distrust, because she knew that human beings had destroyed much of the world by releasing magical beasts. Our hero explained that he still knew little about those creatures, and that they had reproduced too much, causing devastation on the surface. Thali commented that they were similar to them, but our hero denied that, saying that the beasts only wanted to destroy, and he promised to help in everything he could. Rand still did not trust him and stepped away, while our hero told the girls that he would go to the ruins to investigate further. For that reason, Neve decided to accompany him. Thali was surprised to hear noises coming from one of the rooms. When she approached, she noticed that it was a group of soldiers having fun there, but it did not take long before they began making comments about her, questioning the support she should give to our hero. That left her visibly shaken. A few minutes later, our hero arrived at Goodley's tent, who was listening to Greek's complaints about the recklessness of having sent such a large exploration group to the underground area. According to him, similar situations had already happened before, and groups of that size did not always return alive. Even so, the presence of the hero managed to calm the atmosphere of the place, and Greek, happy to see her again, departed right afterward, needing her support. Meanwhile, our hero began searching through the items that had been found, but could not avoid looking at the ruins and remembering how everything had been in the temple. Her mind turned toward the memory of Maria and everyone else who had been there before. After a few hours, they returned to the ship and were surprised to find everything clean, thanks to Thali's effort, who managed to recruit several officers to organize the place. Proud of the result, our hero went to the storage area and asked some officers about the weapon that had been unearthed, but they only said that they did not know, since they had only fulfilled their duty of transporting it. At that moment, a tremor ran through the entire ship, strong enough to frighten everyone. Thali began to have flashes of her previous life, remembering her old name, Lilia. When she opened her eyes again, she found herself in a strange vision, where she could see Elk. A crack appeared in the white wall, and a girl emerged holding the excavated weapon. She introduced herself as Lilia and declared that she had come to eliminate Elk. Thali, intrigued, asked why she sought to save the world, and Lilia answered that she did it for love toward the man she adored. In an instant, she launched herself into the attack, and Thali awakened, remembering that she was still herself and that she should not lose herself in someone else's memories. Hours later, Thali prepared lunch, which everyone enjoyed. Some officers began commenting about how our hero cared too much for her, but he disliked the remarks and decided to return to the storage area to continue the search for the weapon. Meanwhile, Ham read a book mentioning how humans had brought the lifeless body of a god, but he could not advance much because the pages were blurred. Upon reaching a room where Thali was helping officers repair damaged clothing, Ham was impressed by what his friend was capable of doing. After the conversation, Thali went to the storage area and offered help, surprising the hero, who heard that they had heard good things about him and that they wanted to be useful to her. Later, our hero asked them to hand him their swords, taking the chance to sharpen them while they continued the search. In the depths of the ruins, the exploration group encountered an unknown area, and suddenly, a gigantic beast attacked them. A few hours later, Thali brought food to the hero, who, even though he was not irritated, felt moved by the gesture and thanked her. He told her that he had sharpened Khan's sword and found the weapon they were looking for, assuring her that she could test its effect when they returned. Thali, grateful, confessed that she did not know how many things she had forgotten. The hero, examining the sword, noticed that it was in perfect condition, which seemed strange to him, since that weapon had been created to exterminate humans. He remembered Khan, the destruction of the surface, and began to understand what had happened. The idea of the suffering Thali felt for the other girls shocked him so deeply that he collapsed without strength. Thali ran to see if he was all right. He, recovering quickly, asked if she would marry him, explaining that he had learned to value life and the happiness of having a home to return to. He promised to protect her and offer the life she deserved, something Thali accepted with joy, wishing to stay at his side. The next day, Thali could not hide her happiness because of the promise made. Even Han noticed her excitement and commented on how good it was to see her like that. Later, they explored the ruins again, avoiding looking at each other because of the recent events. When Greek called them to show something interesting, Thali became interested in a plaque on the wall. But Greek explained that it referred to Elk's forces. He reminded them that, according to legends, gods once ruled that world and wanted to exterminate humans in a cruel war. The hero recognized one of those gods, Bon, and remembered having fought against him, although he wondered what had happened after the war. Upon reaching the ruins of what had once been his home, he remembered with pain the girls who had waited for him, recalling the promise left unfulfilled. Thali, in turn, began having memories again, feeling something calling from the depths. An earthquake shook the place, The ground opened, and a beast appeared near the excavation. Snape protected the officers, not understanding that it was a magical creature. The hero awakened a few seconds later, confused, not remembering the cave beneath the city. But he saw C.H. Thalie in danger and ran to protect her, taking a blow to the back. C.H. Thalie grew worried, and Greekles commented that they advanced together until Greekles noticed a strange smell, and upon finding mutilated bodies, they realized it was the group sent ahead, attacked by magical beasts, representing great danger. C.H. Thalie began acting strangely, with visions and her own voice guiding her. Obeying the command, she made her wings appear and headed quickly toward the core of the place. At the same time on the surface, Neb finally reached the ship, which was plunged into chaos. She hurried to know to organize the teams in different sectors, with the goal of saving as many people as possible. Both hoped that C.H. Thalie and our hero were safe. When one of the magical beasts appeared, Noob did not hesitate for an instant, throwing himself forward to face it alone. Meanwhile, our hero moved through the ruins of the cave until he reached a massive crystal where C.H. Thalie was touching it. Her hair had almost entirely turned into an intense red. He asked C.H. Thalie to react, but Grieg watched in shock at the wound forming on the girl's body in the center of the crystal. Our hero, however, knew exactly its origin. That wound was the work of seniors, capable of turning into a corpse any being that touched it, whether divine or immortal. If C.H. Thalie carried that mark and was under that curse, then there was a clear reason. When he realized the cave was beginning to collapse, he ran instinctively to escape. Before leaving, he asked C.H. Thalie not to forget him, but a chill ran down his spine when her voice suddenly vanished. Hours later, Goodley examined the damage to the ship with concern and the loss of several cores. He knew it would not be long before they would need to abandon the place. Meanwhile, our hero remained beside C.H. Thalie, begging her to stay with him, to keep the memories they had shared, because he could not bear losing another close person, especially after promising to protect her. C.H. Thalie, for her part, was transported once again to that strange dimension. There, Lilia confronted her, claiming she would kill her, not caring that C.H. Thalie was a goddess, only to protect our hero, ensuring he could continue his life without suffering. Lilia pierced C.H. Thalie with her sword, infusing her with the curse. In that moment, our hero received C.H. Thalie and asked her why she was there. She explained that she wanted to talk about events from long ago. 3 gods who watched over the world realized that humans were about to destroy it, so they sent an army to exterminate them. However, they were unable to complete the mission, because a brave human eliminated the last invaders, which turned humanity into beasts that devoured everything. C.H. Thalie introduced herself as Elk, one of the visitors and the last to die. She also revealed that her weapon shared the same name and explained that fairies possessed the souls of small children who did not understand death. C.H. Thalie then asked about her fate, and Elk explained that she already knew. Dreams do not last forever. Taking her hand, she said it was time to disappear. Meanwhile, Nubai and Ren faced a group of beasts that roamed the area and managed a brief rest. Han, feeling more confident with his weapon, began to believe that our hero truly knew what he was doing, helping them greatly. But soon hundreds of monsters emerged from the ruins. Nubai prepared for the worst, wishing at least for time to talk to C.H. Thalie. Inside the ship, Annie sensed that something was wrong, managing to reactivate the core while one of the beasts tore through metal walls and killed an officer. Nep quickly arrived, cutting the creature's roots and ordering a retreat as officers watched in shock. She suffered some injuries in the struggle, but Neblis ordered an evacuation, worried about the buildup of poison in Nep. Our hero knew C.H. Thalie could not return and began blaming himself, remembering Lilia and what he had failed to protect. He blamed himself for not fulfilling the promise Almeida had made to him and lamented that his promise of happiness to C.H. Thalie had not come true. Even so, he stood up to kiss her before leaving. One of the magical beasts destroyed the wall, and he finally saw her, apologizing for his anger and desire for revenge. C.H. Thalie, keeping part of her memories, wished him the best and that he would never suffer again. She saw his bloodied face and cried, calling his name. In the corridors, our hero began fighting the monsters, the only action possible in the face of his failure. His determination for revenge drove him to eliminate any creature he encountered, while officers tried unsuccessfully to contain the advance. Neb arrived to help, and, even though she was injured, C.H. Thalie ordered them to retreat, taking upon herself the task of defeating the monsters. Outside, Ren continued fighting, surprised when she received help from our hero, who saved her from being devoured and kicked the monster away. Ren was startled by his skill, but asked where the others were. She figured that Noob was fighting nearby and Neb was inside the ship, while our hero, wounded, pushed forward to help them. He stumbled, but answered that it was the only thing he could do. After eliminating several monsters, Ren noticed the deaths of many officers she had been unable to save, yet she chose to keep fighting, determined to make their loss meaningful. A few minutes later, our hero woke up and Ren asked him not to move, worried about his injuries. He refused, explaining that he was one of the legendary heroes, unable to protect anything, and that the only thing he knew how to do was fight. He asked her not to use her sword anymore because of the poison, and moved on slowly, with Stoll watching beside him, as he asked for one last favor, to fulfill the promise he had made. He warned that doing so would make her disappear completely, and that her feelings would never return. Thali understood the weight of the decision, but accepted without hesitation, because she did not want her to see our hero suffer like that, and asked her to let him have one last chance with her. Neep, on the other hand, continued fighting with relentless determination. But one of the beasts managed to strike her, causing severe injuries. Even so, she knew she had no other choice, so she decided to unleash all her power to defeat the magical creature. In the next moment, she fell, exhausted, to the ground, and from the cockpit grip warned that the attacks had spread through the engines, requiring a risky maneuver. Everyone needed to hold on tightly. Meanwhile, in the storage area, the officers noticed that Neep was about to fall through an opening, but she reassured them, saying they did not need to worry, because the ferry gate would be activated soon and that this was for the best. At that instant, our hero arrived, refused to let her fall into the void, and managed to hold her, feeling a mix of relief and joy for having saved her. Neep, however, warned him that he should not have done that, because the activation of the gate was imminent and the entire ship could explode if he climbed up. Determined, he promised he would find a solution and began pulling her upward. Meanwhile, Neep noticed our hero's blood and thanked him, reminding him that he had already saved her and that he did not need to push himself further. For a moment, he let go of her hand, shock, unable to accept her slipping away. Moments later, overwhelmed by pain and determination, he threw himself forward to protect her once again. Inside the ship, Neep lay on the ground, unable to move, when she saw someone pass by and pick up her sword. To her surprise, it was Stoll. Neep hesitated, feeling that she should remain there, because no one would be happy without her presence. Stoll, however, apologized, saying she could not stay still because she had to save our hero. Despite the danger, she felt glad to be there, doing everything necessary. With courage, she launched herself toward our hero, who promised to protect her at any cost, even if it was his final act. At that moment, he tried to activate his abilities to the fullest, while Stoll received Elk's support, and with all the power she possessed, she managed to reach him, preventing his fall. Neep, seeing her in that state, was stunned, although barely conscious. Our hero was also in shock, unable to believe it was Stoll marching against the approaching monsters. With her full strength, Stoll fulfilled her promise and began fighting, remembering every moment of her memories before they vanished, and that gave her even more strength. Even without being hurt, Thali continued destroying the beasts, remembering that she had once been the happiest girl in the world. Our hero, on the ground, cried out inconsolably, begging her not to do all that, while he watched in despair as the beasts pierced Thali in the air. She, however, released all her vital power, causing a massive explosion that lit up the sky and wiped out the monsters in the area. Then she approached to say goodbye to our hero. A few days later, Limonskin bid a painful farewell to all who had lost their lives there, especially the warriors who had fought to save as many people as possible. In the hospital, Nob and Han recovered from their injuries, mourning Stoll's absence. Even Astartes watches Teed and the other girls using Stoll's sacrifice as an example, motivating themselves to grow stronger, although Idea still doubts they will ever achieve something so grand. Wang, meanwhile, is stunned for being unable to detect our hero's vital pulse, and that leaves him confused once again. They receive a notice about visitors, and in a nearby lake, a new fairy appears, full of energy, a soul that has not abandoned the feelings of her previous life. Everyone welcomes her into that world, even though they know her presence will bring unexpected challenges. And thus this summary ends.